I believe that as artists, we have to put that same creativity that we put into our art into finding a way to sustain off of that art. That's the only way we're going to be able to become the artists that we were meant to be.
I think Art Life is probably the best song that I've ever written. Just looking back, I think from a almost from a literature standpoint, so many things that go on in that song, so many different writing styles that's incorporated in it. I think that it may go down as my best work to date, and I think it's a song that, like, when you listen to it, it speaks to you in a certain way, but when you actually read the lyrics and see a lot of the things going on transitionally and grammatically, it really kind of stands out, and that's why I say I have to say Art Life's probably the realest song I ever wrote.
I can't tell you what art life is, but I know what it isn't. 9 to 5 to some.
I think the first verse of that song is so unique because I'm actually describing a movement by describing what it isn't. You know, I start off that verse by saying, I can't tell you what art life is, but I know what it isn't. So basically, like, I describe this movement, this culture, this philosophy that's important to me by describing exactly what it isn't. And I did that because art life is so unique to different people. You know, it's not even art life isn't even something that's just for artists. You know, I have a friend who's a lawyer that feels like he's living the art life because he's pursuing his dream. He's doing what he loves. So I didn't want to explain what art life was by saying this is the art life, because it's hard for one person to say that because it's such a personal movement. So the first statement, I can't tell you what art life is, but I know what it isn't, is an introduction to basically the beliefs of this philosophy. And then another thing that I think is interesting about that verse is the whole verse rhymes. Off of that first statement, I can't tell you what art life is, but I know what it isn't, I actually rhyme off the word isn't 22 times in that first verse. And it's a very difficult thing to do as an artist to keep a flow going and to rhyme in a syllable for a whole verse at a time, especially not only when you're rhyming at the end of sentences, you rhyming in the middle of sentences too. And that's what I think really made that first verse unique and was a segue to the rest of the song.
He's too nice on the mic to be the unsigned type, so he sends his CD in the unsigned hype.
The second verse of the song, I still never tell you what art life is, but I wanted to tell a story of someone who embodied the art life movement. So I created a character, and it was this kid who, you know, he's too nice on the mic to be the unsigned type, so he sends his CD in the unsigned hype. Every night he's on his knees, he prays to God that he blows, puts a post on Craigslist that he's got beats for the low. It's telling you a story of somebody who basically embodied everything that art life is. So it's actually, it gives you a manifestation. And I think what's special about that verse is the amount of growth that it shows in one person over a 16 bar period. Over that second verse, this guy goes from being basically a worker at FedEx, you know, who has his dream, to by the end of the verse, not only is he living the art life, he started his studio, he's making money. Even people from his job have joined him in the art life movement. And I think it covered such a large amount of ground in such a short amount of time. And the purpose of that verse was actually to really segue from the first verse to the third verse with a story in the middle that really helps you put your finger on, okay, that's what art life is. Like, one of the things Tupac said was, I didn't create Thug Life, I diagnosed it. And that's how I feel about art life. Like, I didn't create art life, I diagnosed art life. And that story was an example in the flesh of what art life is. And that was the purpose of the second verse of that song.
I can't tell you what art life is, but I can give a description of the founder of the movement who saw the vision and listened.
The third verse is unique because the third verse is formatted the same way as the first verse. You know, it starts off with the same exact statement, I can't tell you what art life is. But instead of not telling you what art life is through giving you a description of what art life isn't, it tells you, I can't tell you what art life is, but I can give you a description of the founder of the movement who saw the vision and listened. So it's unique because it's telling the story of how this whole philosophy came about, you know, and I'm telling my story in third person, explaining basically what I went through from the outside looking in, just almost as if I was not me, and I just saw this kid go through this in business school, and just having this passion and wanting to do something about it. And one of the things technically about the third verse is it's the same exact rhyme scheme as the first verse as far as rhyming off of the word isn't. And then if you listen closely, there's only like 1 or 2 words that rhymed off the word isn't from the first verse that were used in the third verse. So the third verse rhymes off of the word isn't over 30 times. So you're talking about in one song rhyming about 55 times off of one word. And another thing that's unique about the third verse is the third verse is actually the prelude to the first verse, because the third verse is actually the inception of the movement. But if the third verse would have been first in a song, just schematically it wouldn't have worked the same. So it's kind of like a reverse order, where it's almost like Act 1 is placed in Act 3 and vice versa. And my favorite part about that verse 2 is the way it closes, because it closes with the same premise where you never define art life, only give descriptions. And I say that twice because that's an important part of the movement. So throughout that whole song, I never defined what art life was. I only gave descriptions of it. So you know, that's really a breakdown of that verse, and I think that's what really pulled it together and made it make sense and make it a fitting ending to the song. Overall, I mean, I hope that the song is remembered as a literary masterpiece. You know, I think it's a great song. You know, and regardless of how society or people in hip hop or fans or anyone else thinks about the song, it's one of the only songs I've ever written where, like, even to this day, 2.5 years after writing that song, I still can't think of anything that I could have possibly done to make that song better. And not to say that it's a perfect song, not to say that if another artist, you know, spit it, they might not be able to say it better or something like that. But as an artist, that's the ultimate, you know, reward, is when you can look at a piece of work and you can honestly say there's nothing that I could have done in my power to make that better. And that's what I'm most proud of about that song.